That was quite a few
Pam,
years ago now.
did you hear anything from Angus?
No, and I was just looking for my
Okay.
the planning board calendar to see if I had notes on it about people being absent.
Well, Jara emailed me or texted me about an hour ago and said he probably wouldn't show up until close to 7:30.
Okay,
So
well,
I think
Okay.
we're just waiting for Angus at the moment.
bear in mind, I think bear in mind that this first item, the hearing for 174, I'm planning to recuse myself.
Yep.
So but we still got four. While we're waiting for Angus, Doug, it turns out, of course, that I'm the only person really who knows anything, who knows the answers to probably some of the questions you're going to ask. So it probably would be convenient for me to be invited back in as a support for Felicity. Otherwise, it's going to be reduced to me texting answers, and it could be very cumbersome. Does anybody think that's problematic? I mean, we're a small town. You do often get these things in small towns where people have two hats and they get confused. But
Okay.
But the fact is that because it's a nonprofit in town, and I've offered to support them. I've been doing it without an office, so it's not as though there's somebody else in my office that could come in and answer those questions. It's me or nobody.
All right. Well, we'll probably I guess I'll try that, but I want to make sure you just answer the questions and don't go further than that.
Yes, indeed. Well, you be the judge. If I'm,
Okay.
I will look at you for
No, there's Angus.
what do you call it? This kind of symbols that say point of order symbol, whatever that is. You can cut me off at the chop.
Okay, Angus is here. So Pam, I think we've got everybody we expect for the first hour or so.
One more point of business. I might have to leave at 9, just so you know, Doug and Pam.
It doesn't start until 10, Jesse.
Excellent, I'm early.
Got to watch the pre-game, huh? You devil.
Okay. Okay, yep. Hold on. I'm switching hats here a second. Here we go. I need just a minute.
Recording in progress.
Okay, Mr. Marshall, let's see. You are the co-host of this meeting. You have a quorum of the board. The panelists are here. The attendees are arriving, and I do see Amherst Media is with us in the house. I think you are good to go.
All right, thanks, Pam.
Sure, you're welcome.
Welcome to the Amherst Planning Board meeting of July 1st, 2026. My name is Doug Marshall, and as chair of the Amherst Planning Board, I am calling this meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and is available live stream via Amherst Media. Minutes are being taken. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, and further extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this Planning Board meeting will be conducted via remote means using the Zoom platform. The Zoom meeting link is available on the meeting agenda, posted on the town website's calendar listing for this meeting, or go to the Planning Board webpage and click on the most recent agenda where the Zoom link is listed at the top of the page. No in-person attendance of the public is permitted. However, every effort will be made to ensure the public can access the meeting in real time via technological means. In the event public access is disrupted for reasons of economic hardship or despite our best efforts, We will post an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's website. Board members, I will take a roll call. When I call your name, unmute yourself, answer affirmatively, and return to mute. Bruce Coldham, are you present?
I'm here.
Thank you, Bruce. Fred Hartwell,
I am here.
Jesse Major,
Present.
I, Doug Marshall, am present. Angus McLeod,
Present.
Roy Johnson,
Present.
and Jarrett Smith has informed us he will be arriving sometime around 7:30. So we have 6 members present, we have a quorum, and we can proceed. Board members, if technical issues arise and the discussion needs to pause, it will be noted in the minutes. Please use the raise hand function to ask a question or make a comment, and I will call on you to speak. After speaking, remember to remute yourself. To the general public, the general public comment item on our agenda is reserved for public comment regarding items not appearing later on the agenda. Please be aware the board will not respond to comments during general public comment period. Public comment may also be heard at other times during the meeting when deemed appropriate by the planning board chair. Please indicate you wish to make a comment by clicking the raise hand button when public comment is solicited. If you have joined the Zoom meeting using a telephone, please indicate you wish to make a comment by pressing *9 on your phone. When called on, please identify yourself by stating your full name and address, and put yourself back into mute when finished speaking. Residents can typically express their views for up to 3 minutes, or at the discretion of the planning board chair. If a speaker does not comply with these guidelines or exceeds their allotted time, they may be disconnected from the meeting. Okay, time is 6:37, and we'll start with meeting minutes. We have the minutes from April 8th, 2026. Board members, any comments on those minutes? Anybody, other than that, another exemplary job from our staff putting the minutes together? Jesse,
Nope, I thought they were fine. I'll move to approve the minutes as they are.
thank you. Does anybody want to second those? Not seeing a hand, I'll second the motion. Any further comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and have a vote on the minutes. Roy, you are welcome to vote. You are also welcome to abstain if you wish. We'll start for the approval of the minutes with you, Bruce.
There are 6 here, so I'm going to abstain since I wasn't at the meeting either. That was part of my time away.
Okay. Fred?
I support the minutes as written.
Okay, thank you. Angus?
Does it matter? I also wasn't there, so I was going to abstain, but are we going to be able to pass them?
I think we need a majority of the board, and since there are 7 of us, we need 4.
I'll vote aye.
Okay, thank you, Angus. Jesse?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Chair is not present, and Roy?
I'll abstain, seeing I wasn't there at the meeting. This is my
Okay.
first meeting.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. So we have 4 votes in favor of approval, and that is sufficient to approve the minutes as drafted, and we'll move on. Second item on the agenda is our public comment period. So members of the public, if you want to make a comment, now is a good time to raise your hand. Before we do that, I wanted to just welcome Roy Johnson to the board. Roy is a new member for 3 years, recently approved by town council. So welcome, Roy. And Johanna Newman has left the board, just for the record. Okay, members of the public, anyone want to make a comment? And at this time, I usually read the names of the public or the public attendees that I can see. We have 5 at the moment. They are Deborah Gross, Felicity, Linda Slakey, Maura Keene, and Rob. So none of them have raised their hand, indicating they want to make a public comment. So I guess we will move on from that. Time is 6:40. Third item on the agenda is our first of our two public hearings. This is a new public hearing advertised for 6:35 p.m. So we have passed that moment. This is SPR 2026-04. Applicant is Amherst Community Land Trust. The property is 174 Amity Street. Request site plan review approval under sections 3.3212 and 3.01 of the zoning bylaw to construct an affordable duplex complementary to a 3-unit townhouse on the same lot with parking and associated site improvements, located in the RG General Residence Zoning District on map 14A, parcel 332. Are there board members who would like to make disclosures? Bruce?
Yes, I'm recusing myself from this portion of the meeting, recusing myself from the hearing, the SPR portion. However, as I mentioned earlier, I am functioning as the architect, designer, documentarian, and so forth for this project, and I'm acting in the sole capacity. So there's nobody in my so-called office who's able to cover for me and answer questions. So the likelihood is that some of the information that you require will not be able to be answered by any of the four people, all of the four people in the Felicity's. What happened to Felicity?
We have Linda and Felicity should be brought over.
Yes.
And is
so-
your engineer available at all, Bruce?
Bucky Sparkle could be, but his expertise and knowledge on this project relates more to the wetlands and the Concom's business, and not so much to the design of the building and so forth at the end of the property that's outside of the 100-foot buffer. So there have been questions, and probably will be questions, that Bucky wouldn't necessarily be able to be helpful with. So that's
Okay.
why I'm suggesting that I be able to do as you say, Doug, and simply provide matters of basic factual information, and that alone. That's of course up to the board. If the board is willing to allow that, then I can stay in that capacity, not in the capacity of a member of this deliberating group.
All right. Walker?
Bruce, can you just confirm that you don't have any financial interest in the project?
I have no financial interest in the project.
Okay, I think it's perfectly fine then if you answer questions.
Thanks, Walker.
All right. And, I'm gonna, Bruce, just to try to minimize sort of the potential for any sort of problem with this arrangement, I'm going to suggest that we direct our questions to Felicity and Linda. And if they cannot answer the question, that then we turn to you.
I entirely agree. And if you'd like, you could put me in the attendees and bring me over when and if and as such event may arise.
Well,
So-
maybe we can ask Bruce if you just, I don't know. I mean, we could ask you to turn off your camera and mute yourself, and you can still hear us. And if we need to bring you in, we will. Let's try that. So welcome, Felicity and Linda. I believe, Felicity, you are the attorney representing the land trust, and Linda, you are an official with the land trust.
That's correct.
That's correct,
I'm the
Mr.
president
Chairman.
of the board.
Thank you. So welcome to our meeting. And which of you was going to be sort of introducing the topic? Or Walker, was there anything you wanted to say before we got in had the applicant.
I don't think so unless anybody had any questions for me about the report, the DAR or anything that you were provided.
Well, it might be helpful, I don't know whether it's you, Walker, or someone else, Felicity or Linda, just to give a little overview of how we got to this point, because I know this project has interacted with the town in a number of ways on its way to this moment.
I think that would probably better come from Felicity because I haven't been involved in all of the different aspects of this project.
Okay. All
Happy
right, in
to,
that
Mr.
case,
Chairman.
welcome applicant, and if you want to introduce the project.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, my name is Felicity Hardy. I'm an attorney. I represent Amherst Community Land Trust, and I live at 53 Iduna Lane here in Amherst. I'm pleased to be able to present this project to the board. As the chairman has noted, it has been reviewed by a number of other boards in Amherst. And this is our final stop, so to speak, before we have all the land use permits that we need to construct this project. The project is a 5-unit affordable home ownership project that consists of the existing structure on 174 Amity with the addition of a duplex that will be constructed to the east of the existing structure. From a land use perspective, here's kind of an overview of the permissions and consents that we needed to get to this evening. We received a approval by the Amherst Historical Commission regarding a partial demolition of 174 Amity. This relates to a part of the structure in the back, which is not in very good shape. And we'll be reconstructing that on the same footprint with attention to maintaining the existing architecture, facades, and the like. And the Amherst Historical Commission was satisfied that we could proceed. The building 174 Amity is not in and of itself an historic building, but it contributes to an historic neighborhood. So it was appropriate for the Amherst Historical Commission to take a look at that. Second was a review by the Amherst Conservation Commission with respect to a notice of intent that we filed to undertake this construction. That notice of intent was required because there is a small isolated wetland in the rear of the parcel. And that wetland was created not organically, but rather because of runoff from our abutter directly to the east. The runoff has been kind of unmanaged for a long period of time. And because of this situation, it's created a wetlands that needed to be reviewed by the Conservation Commission. The commission issued an order of conditions. We've recorded that, and we have supplied what the plan that the Conservation Commission approved. So they made some minor changes to the sort of the demarcation of the bordering vegetative wetland and so forth. So that is the plan that is before you this evening. Third, we needed a special permit from the Amherst Zoning Board of Appeals. The reason that was required was because we are intending to convert the existing structure, which is a single-family home, to 3 townhouse units. The building's big enough to allow that, and we wanted to create family housing that would be owner occupied. And we wanted to leverage the footprint of the existing building to the extent that we could. And so the application for special permit was heard by the Zoning Board of Appeals, I think 2 weeks ago. And they approved the special permit. That special permit has a number of conditions, but I will just say that the ones that may be most material to the planning board this evening is the requirement that we maintain the units, the 3 units in the townhouse, as affordable in perpetuity. And that, in fact, is part of our general model. Is to, Amherst Community Land Trust has a model of obtaining parcels, identifying qualified first-time home buyers, and ground leasing the land to the homeowner, selling the structure, but retaining an interest in the land. That's kind of the model that we're using here, although we're applying it in a kind of a multifamily situation. That leaves our application for special permit, site plan review this evening. So one thing I forgot to mention just a moment ago is that in order to have the townhouse on the parcel and the duplex that we're proposing this evening, both the ZBA and the planning board need to make a determination that the 2 uses are complementary to one another. And the ZBA has made that determination because the use of the existing structure will be residential, and the duplex, of course, will be residential too. I also would just sort of point out that this kind of arrangement also exists on a property on North Prospect Street, just a couple of 100 yards away from this one. So that I think is also a kind of a model for the kind of development that we can do with affordable housing in such a prime location. So that's just sort of an overview of kind of how we got to the planning board. And I'm happy to provide some more information, answer questions, however the chairman would like to proceed.
All right, thank you, Felicity. I think, is it correct also to say that this project came before the CPAC for funding from the town?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it did. And actually, we have 2 sources of funding for the project that are municipal in nature. We have a CPAC grant, which is applicable to the construction of the 3 townhouses. We also have received a grant from the Amherst Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. I always sort of fumble on the number of words in the name of that trust. And we'll be using the money from the municipal trust for acquisition of the property.
All right, great. So we did have a site visit. We had a site visit last week, and Angus and I were there along with Bruce, who was representing, and Bruce and Felicity and Linda were all there for the land trust. Angus, anything you want to say, or should I give what I remember from the? So we met at the property. We saw the existing 1830s house and the sort of back house and barn on the rear of it that will be replaced. We saw stakes in the ground where the corners of the proposed new duplex would be located. We walked over to the adjacent property to the east and saw the let's say just the driveway that is creating the runoff, that's creating the wetlands at the rear of the property. We did hear about the fact that some of the utility connections have not been completely resolved. I think perhaps it was at least the electric, if not the water line as well. Angus, anything you want to add to that?
Not really. I have a few questions. We didn't have the plans before the site visit,
Right.
which was challenging. So I think I have a few questions now about
Okay.
that, but no, nothing to add.
All right. All right. So why don't Pam, why don't you bring up the site plan?
Sure.
And Felicity or Linda, would you like to walk us through kind of an overview of what we're seeing?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Okay.
Pam,
Ms.
can
Field
you?
Sadler, yeah, if you could maybe scroll down, because I probably will want to start on the west, which is at the bottom of the plan. Great,
Yeah.
thank you so much. So on the west side, you can see the existing structure and the parking spaces that we propose that will serve the existing structure. My recollection is that there are 8 spaces there and 2 spaces next to the duplex. They won't be assigned because it may be that the residents of the duplex may need to use these parking spaces on the west side, although I kind of anticipate that most of their parking will be adjacent to the duplex. In the corner, you see a detention basin that will be constructed and has been approved by the Conservation Commission. And then all the way to the south is the wetland area.
So the south is to the right.
The south is to the right, correct. So west is at the bottom of the plan, east is at the top of the plan.
So it's over here somewhere.
All right, Felicity, should we scroll up a little bit and look at
Yeah, why don't we do that? So,
go.
although it's not completely pertinent to what the planning board is doing, I just point out that with the redesign of the existing structure, we're going to have egress on both sides of the 3 townhouses. So the townhouses are 2 stories each. At the site visit, Mr. Marshall and Mr. McLeod, you may have noticed, you probably noticed the porches on the east side of the building, but they will also have entrances on the west side that are adjacent to the parking, because we anticipate that when people come to the site, they'll park in that area and then they'll want to access their units on that side. But it seems to me, it's worth keeping the porches on the east side, because first of all, they're already there. So they've already sort of established a little bit of a pedestrian flow. And we don't want to interrupt that. The other advantage to having the porches on the east side is one of the central goals of Amherst Community Land Trust is to develop community both sort of in the broader sense in Amherst, but also among the owners who are benefited by the program that we are offering. So having the porches on the east side also, it seems to me, promotes the community between the people, the families who are living in the townhouses and the families who are going to be living in the duplex. The structures on the south side are again to address the runoff both from the structures and from the property next door. So the easterly abutter doesn't have to do anything. We are taking care of that through the structures that you see on this plan. Mr. Marshall mentioned this question about utilities. We discovered very recently that the electric utilities will have to come into the units underground. Because they're coming into the buildings underground, we will need to construct a transformer pad on the plan. It's not shown here because we've been scrambling for the last couple of days to figure out where the transformer pad should be. And Bruce Coldham has some words about that. But my understanding, our current thinking is that it would be, that the transformer pad would be to the east of one, in between the two buildings, sort of more towards the Amity Street side. So he has some ideas about where to put that pad that he can share with you a little bit later. We've just been kind of talking about it recently. Our builder, Seth Lawrence Salvis from Wright Buildings, has been in touch with Eversource. And there's some complexity to the location of this transformer pad, including the fact that Eversource needs a lot of things before they'll approve the location of the transformer pad, and we're working very hard to get Eversource those things. So I'm kind of putting that sort of to one side for the board's questions later on. Finally, on the east side, you see the duplex. The duplex is going to be constructed by Habitat for Humanity. It will be permanently affordable, both units. The one thing we're not quite sure about right now is how deeply affordable they will be. ACLT's units, the units in the townhouse units, will be affordable to persons up to 80% of area median income. Habitat is trying in its financial modeling to make its duplexes affordable to families with up to 60% AMI income, but we're not entirely sure of that. What we do know is that all of the units will be affordable within the meaning of the Town of Amherst zoning bylaw. The other thing I would point out on the east side of the plan is a new curb cut. We are proposing that because the duplexes will be affordable, accessible, and so it made sense to us to propose closer access for vehicles that would be used by residents on that in the duplex. And I think that's it in terms of my overview. If you have some other questions about the plan or that I can't answer, of course, Bruce is here to answer those questions. And Linda also has more, may have more kind of technical information that I can share with you.
All right, thank you, Felicity. So maybe Pam, could you show us the renderings and the rest of the material that we were provided from the applicant? And maybe shrink it down so that we can see the whole page at a time. That's good.
Is that the whole page? Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
So this is a view from the east, slightly from the northeast. Amity Street is on the right, I believe. The two cars in front are in front of the new duplex that is the subject of our discussion tonight. from the plans that were in the packet, I gather the two-story volume in the foreground is 1 unit, and the one-story unit, or the one-story volume behind it, is the accessible duplex unit. Maybe, and then of course the existing building, the existing house is in the background on the right-hand side. All right, why don't we go to the next page, unless I'll let Felicity and Linda chime in here if you want to add anything else. So we have the floor plans. I believe that if you look at the floor plan in the lower left corner, it shows the 2 volumes, and the yellow volume is the 2-story duplex. Amity Street is to the right, I believe, so that the main front facade of the building is at the right-hand side of that floor plan.
Yeah.
Pam, if you can bring your cursor and just
Oh.
put it along the front edge. No, the opposite side, on the right-hand side of that. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
So that's the front of the building. So there's a front door along that wall, and then there's a side door along the west side up at the top. And looks like a storage shed kind of at the end there. And then moving to the right is moving to the left is the accessible unit that has an entrance along the top edge, which is the right edge. And that's the front door with another little shed unit. And that's entirely on one floor with the kitchen at the entry and the dining and living, and then looks like 2 bedrooms. Let me know if I've said anything false, Felicity or Linda. And then the separate plan that's on in the upper right is the second floor of the front 2-story, 3-bedroom, non-accessible unit.
Yes.
All right, then why don't we go to the next page? All right, these are the elevations. So in the upper left, we have the sort of the front view as faces Amity Street, with the front door of the 2-story. And then to the right of that, in the upper right, we have the west elevation, which is facing the existing house. Below that, we have the east elevation that's facing the abutter to the east. And then in the lower left, we have the rear elevation facing south, which is where the wetlands are. And that's showing one of the doors into the accessible unit. But I don't believe that's an accessible door because it doesn't have a ramp. All right, is there a third page?
Yes.
Oh yeah, then there's the rendering, or the probably a computer model of it. This is from the south. Let's see, from the northwest. So in this instance, Amity Street is to the left. And that's most of the elevation that faces the existing house. All right. All right, so we are not being charged to really think about the existing house with the three units that have been approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. That use has been approved and is essentially a fait accompli at this point. So we're being asked to look at the site and the impacts of the new duplex going on to this site. So with that, I guess I will open it up to questions from the board. Why don't we bring the site plan back up onto the screen, since that's probably going to be the most pertinent drawing. And Pam, if you can shrink it just enough so that we can see, and scroll up a little bit so that we can see the whole site on our screen. There we go. That's good.
That's
Perfect.
good. Okay.
All right. So just to start it off, I'm interested in trash. I see, Pam, if you can bring your cursor in the lower left-hand part of the screen, just above the colored new parking along the bottom. Right
Good.
there, there's a what looks like a dumpster or a storage container or shed maybe for trash. Is in fact, is that the trash collection spot that'll be where the dumps or the toters will be stored before the trash collection happens?
Yes.
All right, and how do I, if I'm an accessible person, if I'm in a wheelchair and I have accessibility challenges, how do I get to that?
So it's on the same level as the entrance to that unit.
Okay,
So,
and is the
you know, I
walkway
mean,
that,
if the person is mobility impaired, they're obviously going to need to, you know, use whatever techniques that they would use to take the trash out, but we have to have exterior storage for the trash. And it has no doors. It's kind of open on one side. But we think that, you know, having it on the same level should make it available to them.
all right, is the sort of curved walkway we're seeing that is adjacent to it, what's the paving material of that?
That I don't know. So I'm gonna ask Bruce or Linda to respond.
Linda, you are muted.
I think actually I was deferring to Bruce. I think he'll be more on top of exactly what the materials are in there.
Okay, then Bruce, why don't you come on in and answer that question about the walkway?
I can stay that way, I think. The trash shed, as has been described, it holds four large bins, trolley bins that get wheeled out onto the street in that western, southwest, northwestern corner. Two of those will be trash bins. Two will be recycling. Doug, you pick up the path there is intended to restore an existing pathway, but it's basically stated to be a stepping stone path, so it really doesn't provide what you might call an acceptable level of accessibility, and neither is there a pathway across the lawn area. So that may be necessary if the person if the person in that if we have somebody in that flat who is in wheelchair bound, number one, and number two, if they're living alone and they haven't got a partner who can handle that. So there would be a couple of conditions that would need to be come into play for us to find the need to upgrade that to make a pathway. It may be that Habitat will ask to change that. I'm not sure. This is the first time this has been raised. So I can simply say that the answer to your question is, as noted on the plan there, convert existing footpath to stepping stones path. And it says it doesn't give a width, but it's not 4 feet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So I guess I'm also, you know, I mean, I was worried a little bit about the accessibility and how that might work. But also just wondering, is that an attractive object? you know, and, you know, are there any other places that it could go? It looks like you're envisioning that there'll be one trash collection point for all 5 units.
That's
And that you wouldn't be asking the trash collector to come into both driveways, one for each building.
That's correct, and it's a 2-bedroom accessible unit, so the likelihood that there would be other people that could take this task on is quite high. But the answer is that there is no accessible route yet, anyway, between the accessible unit and the trash. Although it would only require widening that path, because there is an existing asphalt path that kisses the new path.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to the board. Angus, you mentioned you had some questions. I'm not.
Yeah, I can lead off with a few.
Sure.
The first question is about it's about screening. Is there any kind of screening for that enclosure? And I realize this enclosure is partially connected to the other development, but since it is also connected to the one that it's under consideration tonight, just wondering about screening there, and then also wondering about any other kind of screening apart from what's shown as the evergreen screening by the parking lot on the top left corner on our screen. Is there any additional screening around that parking lot or around any part of the property that apart from that?
So let me start. I mean, Linda and Bruce may have more to say about that. We're showing the new screening. We're leaving some existing trees, so that's going to provide some screening. We haven't proposed like a hedge or anything on the east side of the duplex, in part because it's fairly close to the lot line. I mean, it conforms with the dimensional requirements, but it's close. I mean, I've seen projects where, you know, either the applicant or the planning board or the developer or whoever, you know, wanted to put up like a privacy fence. We weren't proposing that. That's not to say that we couldn't, but that's not really what we're thinking about. And there isn't screening around the trash enclosure.
And in terms of tree plantings, are the trees shown on this diagram existing trees that are being preserved or trees that y'all are trying to plant?
They're existing trees that we're preserving. You may remember from the site visit that there are a lot of mature trees there. And we're trying to maintain some of those. Obviously, some of them have to go because the area where the duplex is going to be constructed is quite wooded. Some of the woods is not particularly nice. It's kind of weedy, but so we're trying to keep the mature trees.
I also see Bruce has got his hand up. Wants to add to that, maybe.
Firstly, I think the intent is that they would be new arborvitae type low screening bushes. The existing trees wouldn't do much in the way of screening, and I think they'll be gone by the time we have completed the driveway. We wouldn't be able to keep the existing trees and do that driveway. You would have to take them out in order to do that. So that note that says evergreen screen per zoning bylaw owner's preference, I think it would have to be new, because just from the point of view of how construction processes proceed. And it's quite common that we would we see this sort of thing regularly around town. So I think it would be new screening bushes. But Linda, if you have a different sense of this, but I think it's always been the intent of the design process that those would be new.
That's correct. That was my understanding.
Okay. And the trash screening is not done with vegetation; it's done with a hit and with board. It's a screened enclosure.
Then I have two other questions. One is about lighting. Oh, I'm sorry. Did
No,
someone
go ahead.
want to?
Go ahead,
Oh, okay.
Amos.
The first question is about lighting. There's a new light fixture, or there's a light fixture on the proposed 2-unit building at the front. So this is on the document with the pretty rendering with the yellow trees in the background. And it's
the first page, Pam.
and yeah, it's actually the third page of that document. Where it says north elevation, that top left. There's a light fixture there. And I guess I'm wondering again, thinking about conformity. I don't recall seeing a light fixture on the front of the other building. Are there plans to install more exterior lighting on the outside of that building? And can you talk a little bit about, I guess, the rationale for installing lighting there?
Shall I take this question?
Yes, Bruce, please.
Angus, you're correct. The light fixture shown at the gable end of the new duplex unit is a light fixture, motion censored, downcast, and so forth, which will act as illumination for the parking. The remaining exterior lighting for the duplex is under the porches, so there'll be 3 other light fixtures that will be or maybe 4 if you put one on the back of the building, but all of the rest of them are under the porches on the duplex. So far as the townhouse is concerned, there are 3 similar exterior wall-mounted light fixtures along the west side of the townhouse, each of them illuminating the portion of the parking lot that is allocated to one or other of those 3 units. And then again, the porches on the front side have got light fixtures outside, but they're under the porch. They're recessed into the porch roofs, I think.
So Bruce, the 3 on the existing building would be in the vicinity of the new entrances to the 3 units on that side of the building?
Correct.
So in each case, the lighting is, it seems like your strategy is to provide lighting where sort of to illuminate the path from parking to the entrance to a unit.
Did you say eliminate or illuminate?
Illuminate.
Yeah, yes. Yes, the 2 parking spaces that will be allocated to the duplex will be the 2 parking spaces closest to the street, where the residual lighting is from the street lighting and so forth is considered sufficient. And then as you get further away down the parking, the remaining 6 parking spaces on the west side of the townhouse will be eliminated from the buildings themselves. Is there a portion of your question that I haven't answered?
No. The other question that I had was about snow, which was mentioned in the site plan review. Where is snow meant to be stored when it's removed from the parking lots?
You put up the site plan.
Pam,
The answer is that for the western side, it'll be pushed all the way down to the southern end of that, the southern end of the area. So basically toward the detention pond and basically in the area between the shed. I'm answering for the townhouse because there was a general question. So there's an area between the property line, the shed, and that detention basin, which is where snow would accumulate.
In here.
Yes, no, in that area. Well, not there. No, at the end of at the end of the driveway.
Oh, here.
At the end, yes. So all of that area between the property line, the shed, and the detention basin. There's quite a large white area there, all the way up to the shed as well. And then in the on the duplex side, it'll be pushed into the area to the it actually won't be pushed, it'll be pulled. That's not an easy thing to do, but that's where it'll have to be put into the area to the west of that double parking area. It depends a little bit on whether this is handled by snow, hand blowers and so forth, in which case it could be blown into the up toward the end of the parking area. But generally speaking, the answer I think would be that big open area to the west of those two parking units, no, down.
Down.
No, head to the western end of the parking area.
This parking?
The parking area is the gray, yeah, so the western end of it.
Down at the bottom of it.
There you
At
go.
the bottom of it,
Yeah.
Pam.
So that just around there is where the snow, just immediately below your arrow. Stop, don't move, keep the arrow right there. That is where the snow would go there and to the right of that, over toward the back end, the turnaround.
Yeah.
Great. The only other thing I was going to point out, when we were there at the site plan, the neighbor's driveway is really encroaching on this property, which was mentioned by the applicant, and I just wanted to note that that's really frustrating and seems unacceptable to me. And I think that y'all have done a really admirable job of trying to work around that. And the only other comment I was going to make is I was on the CPA committee that approved funding for this project, and I relayed that this was a really high priority project for the planning board when we were kind of doing our ranking, because this was a project that was going to yield immediate affordable housing units.
You mean it
and
was
so
a
I just
priority for CPAC?
No, it was a priority for the planning board that I relayed to CPAC.
Okay.
So I had asked you all, the board at that time, what was a high priority in terms of the housing related projects, and this was the highest priority of the 3 or 4 projects that were brought to the CPA. So I just wanted to remind the planning board of that, and that other members of the CPA found that perspective really helpful. It changed their voting behavior. And so this is, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the work that was done here, and excitement about this project and getting to see this happen. It's great. Those are all the questions and comments I have.
All right, thanks, Angus. I'm going to pick up on what you just said. I was also dismayed to see that the abutter's driveway was over your property line, and I was dismayed to hear that the abutter's failure to implement the stormwater management that they had been directed to do many years ago had caused you to incur the costs for the wetlands on this plan. And so my question, I realize you guys are trying to be good neighbors and not get into litigation with the abutter. Would there be any advantage for you if this board asked that the pavement on your property over the property line along the east edge be removed, or for the fence that you've probably set back from the edge of the property to be actually put along the property line? And if we imposed that condition, would that be helpful to you in your in your management of your property, or would that be a problem? Felicity?
Mr. Chairman, I truly appreciate the sentiment. It is frustrating that we have these issues with the abutter to the east. I think we have I hope that we have a strategy to deal with that, but it doesn't involve conditions or requirements in the context of site plan review. We've been we've been working extremely hard over the last 6 months to pull together what is a reasonably complicated project. And I will say from my own point of view, that from a legal perspective, this is a particularly complicated project. Affordable housing is always challenging to do. I love doing it. I love the clients, and I love the results. But right now, our focus is on getting this done. And we have a closing coming up at the end of July. We want to focus on kind of, our eyes are on the prize, which is, doing this project. And there will be time later on, once construction has begun, to have a more full and frank discussion with the abutter about the issues that the encroachments present to our property.
All right, so okay, go ahead, Linda.
I was just going to add to what you shared, Felicity, that you've pointed out to us that we can't leave things as undocumented as they are now. So part of our approach is that documentation of the easement that they've been allowed will be properly filed. And that will present an opportunity to reinforce what the effective boundary has to be. They've been mowing well over their property line, reasonable tidying, and so they run a big mower, so it mows a big stretch on what is actually the land associated with 174. So we are going to have to address how we're going to manage the boundary, and Felicity has urged us to do that by way of documenting a specific easement that makes explicit what's allowed and what's not allowed on that line.
All right, I guess so. My takeaway is you'd rather we didn't impose a condition that caused any change to the conditions of that that boundary at this point.
If I can just speak from my own experience of the shared driveway, I suspect that one reason for the creep is that a full-size modern snowplow going down that driveway probably wouldn't fit within a strict enforcement of the boundary, particularly if we put up a mechanical barrier. A big snowplow pushing a big load of snow after a heavy snowfall can probably just about make that driveway. It's not that wide. It's probably the minimum legal width for the cars.
Okay. Bruce, I guess I see your hand as well.
I'm asking Felicity and Linda whether they think that a formal expression of dismay by the planning board wouldn't be potentially to our benefit. I can't see how it would be to our detriment. I'll say that and nothing else.
Linda?
That's a good point, Bruce. A statement from the board of sort of their view of the matter without saying explicitly a certain condition has to be met. I think it would be useful to have the documentation record that you've taken note of the degree of encroachment and are concerned about it, and how ACLT plans to maintain an appropriate boundary to safeguard their houses, something like that.
Okay. So, so that might be something we put in our findings as opposed to in our conditions.
Mm-hmm.
One thing just occurred to me, and I'll just ask, have you ever considered entering the accessible parking spaces from the abutters curb cut.
Yes, we didn't consider that actually. The, I don't remember the technical answer to that. Seth Lawrence Slavos discouraged it, having to do with what, with the technical challenge that would present to actually have an add there, an entrance into the accessible lot off of his driveway.
Hmm.
Do you
Okay.
remember the actual conditions for thinking that wasn't a good idea, Bruce?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It was not only Seth, most especially it was Bucky Sparkle
Oh,
in
yeah.
the civil engineering. And the
Yeah.
principal problem is that the driveway you see there is not a two-way driveway, it's a one-way driveway, because the driveway actually goes down the other side of the building as well, and it's a kind of a U-shaped driveway. And if you look at the some of the site photos, you'll see that there's a directional sign applied to that driveway. So we would be trying to navigate a two-way activity at the head of a one-way driveway. And I think the realization of that pretty much sunk the ship in terms
Okay.
of that
All right.
idea. But we did think about it, and it seemed for a moment in time to be a clever idea.
Yeah, especially if they're encroaching on you and you've got some leverage to
Right,
ask
you are.
them to, you
Yeah.
know, to give you something in return. Okay. So I wanted to ask, and I guess it's probably just a point of information. So you retain the land and you sell the unit to someone with a particular percentage of the average income. And so they've bought the unit, and you know, these people could be there for 40 or 50 years. Over time, is it important that their income continue to be no more than 80%? Or if they win the lottery, does that fine?
We're happy if they just get a promotion at work. You know, that we don't want people to stay poor. That the house, however, stays affordable in perpetuity. And we're very careful to explain to potential owners, and they have their own attorney, and we tell them that that attorney should walk them through the lease to make sure they actually understand the long-term implications of its conditions. So there are two conditions. One is that they have to live there. So if they choose, if their life changes, so they choose to live elsewhere, they can't run it as a rental. And the other is that its value can rise only in proportion to the rise in incomes. It doesn't track market values. So if they're there 40 years, then their base price is recorded and they can ask a price which represents an increase proportional to the rise in area median incomes over that time. And the idea being that it's forever affordable at the same level.
All right. So you essentially have to demonstrate your compliance with the income level at the point of sale.
At the point of purchase.
And then it's not an issue beyond that.
That's correct.
Okay. Felicity, I see your hand.
It's only an issue to the extent that the ownership of the property changes. So if the family won the lottery, likely they would probably want a larger place. It's you know, they'd
Right.
try to sell this, and then we have to income qualify the next property owner.
Okay. All right. Let's see, I'm just checking and I do not see Jara yet, so he has not arrived. The time is 7:39. So, so we think we're going to need more information on the transformer. And so I'm going to propose that we continue this hearing rather. Felicity and Linda, do you think, and Bruce, do you think that is July 15th enough time?
Go ahead, Bruce.
I think it has to be. The whole process here would want this to be resolved ideally before the closing, which is at the end of this month. I do have a diagram, which I'm not sure whether I need to bring up, but we have been in consultation with the Eversource. I spent a bit of the afternoon reading a very lengthy document that Eversource produced that states constraints and so forth associated with transformers. We know the size that it needs to be. Therefore, we know consulting this, we know the setbacks. So a transformer has to be set back 10 feet from the property line and 5 feet from a building. And if you draw a diagram that has this property line setback coming in from the property line on the Amity Street side, you draw a 5-foot setback from the building, you get a triangle that closes at down basically at that trash shed and opens to the point where it becomes apparent that the transformer location that's most workable is on the eastern side of the path that goes out from the townhouses to the mailbox. And I think it's pretty clear that that's where the transformer has to go. So I think in 2 weeks we can expect to clarify that with sufficiently that we can come back on before the 15th with a plan showing the transformer location, the size of the pad, and the size of the pad and the location. As far as the water lines are concerned, we know what we need to do there. They just need to be put on the drawing. And I won't go through that.
I'm less worried about the water lines because they're subsurface and, you know.
So, and it would mean that we would take in the location that I've just described, the power would be sourced from the pole on the eastern side of further to the east. Currently, the power to the townhouse comes from a pole on the northwest corner and comes overhead to the northwest corner of the townhouse. So this would redirect the power into the property, but this is good from the point of view that it puts the transformer also more or less equally between the two buildings, the existing one and the new, which means that there would be less trenching to get back up to where the duplex is. So I think all parties, the Habitat, whom you haven't heard from here, who will be building this duplex and will be paying, basically the financial package associated with construction of the duplex will be handled by Habitat. So they were interested in having it closer. I think that's the way it's going to sugar out. And I think 2 weeks from now should be enough time to have obtained clarity on that matter.
All right, thank you. I think we will probably want to see some screening at that transformer. It seems like could end up in a pretty prominent location from the point of view of
Yes,
Amity
I
Street.
think the residents would as well. So it'll be screened with lower bushes. I can take a photograph of the transformer at Pine Street Co-housing, which is in the middle of the community, which is screened similarly and has been for 30 years. So yes, screening would be expected.
All right, so, and then we had some conversation about the ADA path to the trash enclosure. I guess I'm wondering, do you intend to revise that and make that more accessible, or are you saying
that
you
will
don't
be a
want to do that
question
until there's a need?
I'll ask Megan McDonough, who's the director of Habitat, what she would. I'll ask her that question. I'll basically relay your question to her. We'll be having a meeting next week. So we'll have that discussion a week from today, which will be quite timely enough for the any adjustments to the plan to be made. And I guess Bucky will be making those adjustments because Bucky Sparkle, because he's basically got the cluster of electrons that is the site design. And he will also look at anything we're proposing to see whether there's any coverage or impact so far as the Concom is concerned. It's
Right.
everything we're discussing is well outside the 100-foot buffer, but there are coverage consequences and so forth. They're microscopic, but Bucky seems to be tracking these very small changes in permeability and impermeability.
All right, thank you. I'm going to ask now if there are any public comments on this project. So members of the public, if you want to make a comment on this site plan review application, now's the time to raise your hand. Pam Field Sadler, can we bring over Pam Rooney to speak for no more than 3 minutes? Hello, Pam.
Hi, Pam Rooney, 42 Cottage Street. This is a wonderful project. I'm delighted it's moving along. I do have about 4 questions or comments about the site design. There was a good conversation about the access to the trash container or the trash storage area. And whatever is done should be a very simple but very smooth, something that you could actually roll a bin along. I think a paving stepping stone is not a good idea. You can't shovel it. It's not easy to walk on. So an easy 3-foot wide concrete walk connecting the duplex to the system of walks by the existing house really seems to be appropriate. I'm looking at the layout of the parking for the new duplex, and it appears to be extra long. There may be a reason for that, but normally a parking space is only need to be, 8 or 9 feet wide by 20 feet at the most in length. And it looks like you've got an extra 8 to 10 feet of length of permeable parking. And so certainly, shortening that up would save a little money, and it would also provide a little more area for whatever buffer you're trying to build along the east property line. Third thing is that the contours for the drainage are a little problematic on the east side. They really, as drawn, they are forcing all the runoff from the building to the very edge of the pavement, which unfortunately is on your property. So there's going to be scouring along that very edge where you're actually also trying to put your fence. So unfortunately, it looks like you need to have the center of the swale closer to the building in order to direct it away from the pavement itself. And then lastly, question is there or what is the need for the split rail fence all along the south border? As long as they are not mowing within the wetland buffer, is there any reason to fence it off? That seems like a huge expense and really visually constrains the site. Thank you. Those are my 4 comments.
Thank you, Pam. So I see Felicity and Bruce, you can decide how you want to respond to those.
I'm going to let Bruce handle this one.
Okay, I wasn't at the Concom hearing, but I have read the order of conditions. We proposed that there be, and I'm speaking now to your last question, Pam. There is a requirement from the Concom to delineate the 50-foot buffer, and we knew that going into the meeting, and we proposed that we put boulders along that every 10 feet. It would be, I would expect if I had anything to do with it, they would be partially buried so they didn't look like golf balls sitting in the landscape, but they would look a little more natural. But nonetheless, boulders are 10 feet. The Concom order of conditions added the split rail fence as being, as it turns out, an option. It may be their preferred option, but it's not as condition. So I will advocate that to my colleagues that we hold to our boulders and abrogate on the split rail fence. However, I'm not sure that my colleagues would agree with me. So I think, therefore, Pam, the general answer to your question is that split rail fence exists as a an express preference of the Conservation Commission. But it's only a preference. The requirement is that some barrier be there. It could be a split rail fence. It could be a series of boulders at 10 feet.
And what about the parking, the length of the parking spaces, Bruce?
I'd have to have the plan up. It didn't appear to me to be unwieldy in length, but if it is, certainly I have no particular. Well,
that does give you some room to store snow if you want to just push it to the end.
It would. It does appear to be rather long, but I think that it might be. I mean, in some respects, the driveway cut should be pushed east. Also, the driveway is actually permeable, so it actually any driveway area is actually a mitigating element from the point of view of the Conservation Commission. I don't think that's why it would be longer. So I think the answer therefore, Pam, is that I don't know. I'll ask Bucky Sparkle, the civil and designing engineer, and I have so noted on my notes here.
Okay. I mean, there will be a turning radius to get in and out of those spaces, and I'm wondering if that's part of it. Particularly the one that's nearer to Amity Street.
Yeah.
And then the first comment that Pam made was about just the ability to roll the toters from the trash enclosure out to the street or out to the parking area. And, you know, I had concerns about the accessibility for the a tenant who might be in a wheelchair, but I think Pam's comment is actually even more appropriate for changing the material of that walkway between the two properties and that goes past the trash enclosure. So I think that would be well worth considering.
Agreed and so noted.
All right. And at the moment, I can't remember Pam's fourth comment. I'm sure the recording will show it.
Oh, it was the swale.
Yeah, the swale and potential scouring along that edge.
And because the driveway is close to this drawing doesn't show the western edge of the abutters driveway.
Well, right at the.
Maybe it does.
I think it does, and it's right for most of its length. It's under the
the swale.
It's right next to the fence, just east of it.
Yeah, that's not a fence. That's an erosion. What do you call it? Control. But again, I should ask Bucky whether it wouldn't be prudent to pull that swale west.
Okay.
As Pam suggests. Not surprising because I know Pam's background and she's not looking at this as a town councillor. I can tell that.
Right.
Thank you, Pam. That's very helpful. All very helpful.
All right. I don't see any other hands from the public. Board members, as I said, I think we should continue this hearing. Walker, I assume that for the next iteration of this, will you have draft findings and conditions for us to review?
Yeah, I did draft some for this prior to this hearing, but I think we'd be better off reviewing them at the next hearing when I can incorporate the comments from tonight.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see any in the packet, but you have
Yeah,
some. You have
I did.
some
Yeah, they
ready.
weren't included in the
were
packet.
there.
But, yeah.
Okay, great. Felicity, I see your hand.
So just a reminder, Mr. Chairman, that I haven't seen any draft, but we will need to have a finding that the duplex use is complementary to
Yes.
the townhouse. Thank you.
Yep, that one is in my draft.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, all right, in that case, I guess I'm gonna make a motion that we continue this hearing to July 15th, our next meeting, at, let's say, 6:35 PM. Is, Pam Field Sadler, do we have any other business that we've already penciled in for 6:35?
Are we doing clean energy bylaw on 7:15? Are we back to a
I
joint
believe we are bringing back the town.
session with them? So
the
they are at
CRC.
6:35.
Okay,
So it would have to be 6:45.
all right, then I'll make the motion for July 15th at 6:45 PM.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Angus. Any further comments from the board or information from the applicant?
I just have one other thing. I probably will not be present for that because we'll probably have a child by then. But if I am able to make it, I would vote that they're, complimentary. And I'm very excited about this project.
Thank you, Angus. Okay, in that case, we'll just run through voting for the continuation. I will skip Bruce because he is recused from this vote. Fred,
Aye.
thank you. Angus,
Aye.
Jesse,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. And Roy,
Aye.
thank you, Roy. And Jara has not arrived yet. So we have 5 members in favor, 1 recusal and 1 absence. The motion carries. Thank you, Felicity and Linda and Bruce. Good luck tying up loose ends in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you again.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Bruce, are you coming back as counselor at this moment?
Board
As a
member,
planning
yes.
board- planning
Yes,
board
I
member?
am. Hearing Angus and knowing his situation and knowing my situation and and also now knowing Jera's situation, which is that he hasn't been able to see this, I guess we should encourage Jera to watch the video, watch the recording of this so that he's in a position to vote because, oh, we still have 4. I'm sorry. I somehow
Well,
missed
but,
count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things happen, so we'd like to make sure we have a quorum. Walker?
Yeah, actually, Jira just emailed saying that he wasn't going to make it tonight, but he would watch the recording and plan on participating at the next meeting.
Okay, great. All right, time is 7:58. We usually take a break at 8 o'clock. Counselors, would you like to go ahead and do that, or should we postpone it or cancel that? Anybody object? All right, take 5 minutes to walk around and get yourself ready for another hour or so. Thank you. All right, please turn on your camera as you return. So let us know that you are ready to resume the meeting. All right, it looks like we have all board members back. I can see Pam Field Sadler just walked away for a moment. And Walker is still.
I'm here. My internet connection's poor, so I'm leaving my video off so that I don't get dropped.
Okay, good. Thanks for letting me know.
Mhm.
All right, looks like we're ready to resume. Time is 8:06. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. It's a continuation of a previous hearing. So this is concerning a zoning bylaw proposal for Article 18, Clean Energy Infrastructure. This hearing is continued from May 20th, June 3rd, and June 17th of this year. To consider amending the zoning bylaw by adopting Article 18, Clean Energy Infrastructure, and associated amendments to Zoning Table 3, Dimensional Regulations, Section 5.11, Renewable Energy Accessory Solar Photovoltaic Installations / Battery Energy Storage Systems Uses, and 6.2 fences, and Article 12 definitions. So we had in our packet a new version of this proposed bylaw. I think we're up to version 13B. So I'm not sure why we started adding letters as opposed to just going to article number 14. But anyway, not my decision. So this is board members, with the exception of Roy, you all participated in the last two meetings with the CRC about this. And this is our chance to discuss this bylaw without CRC directly involved, although I know that one member of CRC is still in the attendees list. My question for you is, how are you feeling about this bylaw? You know we're under a time deadline, or the town is under a deadline from the state to have a bylaw in place, or risk having the state take over approval of these kinds of projects. Are you feeling positive about recommending the bylaw in its current form to council for enactment? Or do you have concerns that we probably need to convey to CRC that would need to be addressed in order to recommend it? So that's my basic question for the board. Happy to talk about anything else related to this. but I would like to hear from you all. So Jesse.
I guess my only concern is that certainly I'm no expert in these things. And I feel like several times in the very long discussions we've had, points have been brought up where no one in the room was knowledgeable. And so that makes me somewhat uncomfortable. And it makes me wonder, A, about our process, but I think that's a different conversation. But I just hope someone who is knowledgeable is looking at these points and changing it appropriately. And like, I mean, at this point, I just have to trust that that's happening. So I guess I just wanted to comment, just make that comment. So that's
Yeah,
all.
Jesse, I think that came up, or that was obvious in the last meeting.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, gee, I guess this is what it's like to be a legislator, because
yes,
all those guys in the legislature, they're not experts about, much of anything except for legislative procedure. And they have to rely on, everybody else that's trying to whisper in their ear about how things should be.
Yeah. So I guess my real comment then I would make is for the planning board, which is when these things happen, if there's a way to curtail the conversation to say, oh, quickly say, okay, we shouldn't talk about this for 20 minutes because none of us really know.
Right.
And move on.
Well, I mean, worst case, we'll enact something, and then the next person that wants to do something will say,
correct,
this
they'll
is
challenge
stupid,
it
or take us to court, or something will cause us to realize we made a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Angus.
Yeah, I have a clarifying question and then I guess a couple of thoughts in response to the question you posed to us, Doug. We have not, this is what's been sent, the version that we're seeing is the one that's been sent to KP Law, but not the one, we have not gotten their thoughts on it yet.
That's
correct?
right. That's right. My question, or, tonight's discussion is just about what we have before us. We do hope to get the KP Law reaction, between now and the 15th, because, CRC is hoping that we can recommend this to council on the 15th to kind of keep up with the timeline that they have for getting it through council and enacted. So
Gotcha.
You're right, we haven't seen anything, but I'm assuming, and Walker, maybe you can confirm this, as soon as we get answers from KP Law, that can be distributed to us. I don't think we need to wait for the packet, but I hope it comes at least in time to go into the packet if it's not sooner.
That's my understanding. That's my understanding is that it will be sent directly to everyone as soon as it's received.
Good.
So I guess my only thoughts in response, this has been a long and drawn out process, and I know we're only coming in at the very tail end of what's been a much longer process. So kudos to the CRC for how much they've done on this. I'll just share what I've basically shared throughout this process, which is that I'm concerned, I've been concerned throughout about the length of the bylaw. I understand that the state model bylaw is also lengthy, but we have added additional requirements, particularly around groundwater, that seem excessive to me. And we've placed more limits on where these kinds of projects are allowed in the use table at the end of the document that are much greater than what the state recommends. And we have stated that our goal with this bylaw is to ensure that we're able to have to streamline the process and to allow for more clean energy construction that's done safely and in keeping with our community's values. I think that's a great goal. I worry that this bylaw, as it's currently written, throws up more impediments than is necessary if the goal is to actually create more clean energy. So I appreciate that.
Are there specific things you would, either change in that table or strike? I was surprised that there were no, nowhere in town would a tier 3 installation be allowed without special permit, right? And I brought that up, and that conversation did result in a slight increase in the category of tier 2, but it didn't, I mean, to really power our society with electrical solar power, we need a lot more than just a few tier 2s around town. If we're going to consider ourselves self-sufficient, and I'm not sure that's really an objective, but are we really, are we okay with that? What
Yeah,
were
I
the
mean,
things? What were the things that you might tweak if you had a chance?
it was a number of the things that we brought up in the lengthy meetings. And similar to what you just said, Doug, I think the consensus from the CRC was greater resistance to some of those things, and that's fine. This is a deliberative process, and ultimately the town council makes the call on these things. So I would have reduced more of the distances or eliminated the distances around private wells, and reduced them around public wells. And most of the requirements that are specific to clean energy installations, especially the solar installations, that would not apply to any other kind of industrial use, including fossil fuel uses like gas stations, I would try and remove from this bylaw. That was not well received, or I mean, at a few points we made changes, right? But we compromised. So those are the things that I would be looking for differently. But this, we live in a democracy. It's a deliberative process, and so I also respect that the CRC and the town council have other priorities that they're also balancing apart from the ones that we as planning board members are prioritizing.
Well, we can certainly put those kinds of things into our letter of recommendation to council. We don't have to say that we're accepting the current draft wholesale. We could say that we, have reservations about some of those distances, and that the bylaw is not quite as supportive as we would like it to be. I'm certainly comfortable working with Walker on that kind of language if that's a consensus feeling of the board. All right, Angus, you muted yourself, so I'm going to assume you've finished what you wanted to say at this moment. I will say I was very disappointed in the state's model bylaw. It gave people who are opposed to development of solar power, a leg to stand on in terms of, hey, look, the model bylaw says, you don't need to have any, you can be relatively restrictive, and and so why should we be more liberal than the state bylaw or the state model? So yeah, I'm surprised. I'd like to know how that model bylaw got promulgated, because it doesn't seem like there were any real advocates in the room. Bruce.
I broadly agree with Angus and with you as well in your general statement about what are we trying to achieve here, who are we trying to support, which team do we want to put our money on, and so forth. I think I agree that we should a letter. I mean, I'm supportive of the bylaw. I know that we've had now considerable discussion on this, and that this bylaw has been changed based on the advocacy that Angus and I have made, and on the drinking water side, distancing things, and in other ways by others, Fred's, for example, yours, Doug. But I think the letter should say we've engaged, we've noticed that we've been able to persuade to some degree, but that doesn't represent a full reflection of the views of several members of this board, particularly from my point of view on the drinking water setbacks for wells, private well particularly, from solar arrays. I'm less concerned about BESS, partly because I don't know enough about it, partly because I think we all know that we know enough to know that it's a small concentrated area and not a broad distributed area as the arrays we certainly know of. So less concerned about the BESS, much more concerned about setbacks from arrays. So broadly speaking, I think we should be prepared to write a letter of conditional support.
Okay. All right, thank you. Fred, any thoughts from you? And Roy, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to comment on something you haven't spent much time with. So either of you want to say anything? Fred?
Well, I would just, I am struck, Bruce has made some very, I think, interesting analysis regarding the amount of space required for the boundaries of and the edges of these installations and the way that they count. And that's something I'm thinking a lot about as we go forward with this.
All right, thanks, Fred. All right, Roy, I'll give you one more chance if you want to say anything. You can just say you don't have anything to say. Are you looking for where you unmute? If you are, in the lower left corner of your screen, you should see a little microphone symbol. Yeah, there you go. You're clicking it on and off. I can see that, but right now it's off. You got it on, you had it on for a moment, but now it's off. So we cannot hear you. Actually, let me see if
Can Pam unmute him, or can you?
yeah, I
mean,
was just
we
looking.
we heard Roy at the beginning of the
I can
meeting.
ask
So
him to unmute, but I can't
Yeah.
unmute him.
Right, there's a microphone down in the lower left-hand corner. Like an old-time microphone, it should say audio underneath it. And you click it.
you have to bring your cursor over there for it to show.
You can also
Yeah.
just hold your space bar down.
Oh, really? Hold the space bar down. That'll do it.
I didn't know that. Good information.
Jesse must be a power user on
I know.
Zoom.
Gets the gold star today.
All right. Well, it doesn't seem to be working for Roy. So, Roy, I'm not going to hold you. Hold.
Here we go.
There you go.
There was technical difficulty. I could not get that to switch out. I've read it over. I probably need to study it a lot more. And I'm interested in maybe if we're not going to be voting on anything to pass tonight, I'd like to talk to someone that actually installs the some of these solar arrays to see what they think too.
Yeah, and that's something, or your comment along with Jesse's reminds me, this process started with a solar bylaw working group probably 4 years ago. And I assume that group had some contact with the solar industry, but I don't know. So,
When
yeah.
Jesse brought this up before, it didn't seem like there had been conversations with solar industry representatives, because I
Yeah.
think Jesse asked a similar question at one of our meetings.
Yeah, so we'll go with what we know, and assume everything else is right because of somebody else's input. Okay, so unless, well, I guess I'll ask for public comment. If we have 2 members of the public remaining. Do either of you members want to say anything at this moment? We will be continuing this hearing to July 15th at 6:35. Okay, let's bring over Pam Rooney. Hello, Pam.
Hi, I'll speak as a CRC member. In terms of input from the development side of solar bylaw, I mean the solar construction, on the working group was a member who was also on the Concom, who is in fact works for solar development, and she was viewed as sort of the subject matter expert, and so had both Concom hat and solar development. I can't speak beyond that. I just happen to know that particular fact. They did an extensive review with agrivoltaics, with farming, with a number of elements, but I do not know if they actually brought in people who do the construction. Sorry, I don't have that information.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. All right, I don't see any other public comment, and board members. I appreciate this conversation tonight. I think that gives us enough for Walker and me to draft some sort of recommendation letter to council, or we could get started on it. You know, we'll see where we end up on the 15th. All right, so without further ado, I guess I'll make a motion to continue this hearing to July 15th at 6:35 p.m. May I have a second?
Doesn't it need to be later than that, Doug?
No, I think we kind of already agreed
Oh, right.
to
Sorry.
do this one at 6:35, so CRC can show up and.
Then I second.
Okay. Thank you. All right, board members, any other conversation about the clean energy bylaw? Okay. Then we will vote on that. Starting again, I'll start with you, Bruce.
Aye.
Thank you. Fred?
Aye.
Angus?
Aye.
Jesse?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So that's 6 in favor, 1 member absent. Thank you all. All right, next item on our agenda for this evening, time is 8:26, is a conversation about the East Amherst Local Historic District proposal. Walker, you want to make an introduction here?
Well, I can, but also I got a request from the members of the Local Historic District Commission to be moved to your next meeting. Some of the members were not unable to stay this late into the meeting, so they were going to request being put on the agenda earlier next time. Because
well, you know, we're already gonna have the clean energy bylaw and then 174 Amity Street next time as our first 2 substantive topics.
yeah, I
will they
understand
will they be able to stay late enough next time?
that the lateness seems to be the problem, but I mean, I can explain to them that we are still going to have those 2 hearings.
I mean, we could have a conversation without them.
That is also possible. Yeah, I can present the facts.
Is this time sensitive, I guess is maybe the question. Jesse, I do see your hand.
It's not particularly time sensitive. I don't think there's enough urgency that we need to talk about it tonight specifically.
Okay, all right. In that case, Jesse, what would you like to say?
Thanks. Just to add that both last meeting and then in between the meetings and then tonight, I've had some interactions with some of the Historic Commission members who wanted to be present also. I think the issue is not just how late it gets, but not knowing when. So I know there was a significant frustration from 2 weeks ago of basically waiting through whatever it was, 3 hours, and then it not happening.
Yeah.
So
Although
my
we
guess
had-
is if possible, if we can make a time for them and try and be close to that, I think that would solve the issue.
So
Just-
if
just
we
put it
just
out there.
said, oh, we're gonna do this at as the first substantive item at our first meeting in August, they'd be fine with that.
I mean, I can't speak to that, but my guess would be yes.
I think that would probably be preferable. We had an arrangement where I was supposed to let them know when they were going to be on the agenda tonight, so they wouldn't have to wait so long, but they still felt that it was getting too late. So I think they would rather wait till you have a meeting that maybe doesn't have as many hearings, so they can be earlier.
All right. So
August.
Pam and Walker, what do we know about August? How does that look? Do we have any things on the horizon?
No, August 5th is wide open in my book. Walker, do you?
Yeah, the only thing I know of is the East Amherst zoning RFP is going to be a topic of discussion at that point, but that's not a public hearing. it's
And we
not-
could make that the second
we
item.
could make that
and-
the second item, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, well, that's fine with me. I don't need to draw this out tonight. And if this is not a particularly time-sensitive thing, then why don't we do that?
Okay, I will let them know.
That-
And Pam, just pencil this in for 6:35
Yeah.
on August 5th, I guess.
Yes, yep, I made a note here. And then
Great.
Walker, can you say with certainty that we're gonna do the East Amherst RFP on that night too?
Well, actually, this was going to be one of my topics when we get to the staff report section, but I do have kind of a timeline that we're going to be running on.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Well, I mean, we could make it later. I mean, we could tell them we're not going to do it until the first one in September. I mean, but I'm not sure we need to do that yet. So
Yeah,
why,
I don't
why
think-
why don't we just plan on August 5th, and as we get later in July, we can see whether we need to adjust.
Okay.
All right. General housing discussion. Review potential zoning amendments that would allow housing in the professional and research park zoning district. We've had this on a couple of agendas, and Angus is here. I think you're the author of this, are you not?
I am.
All right, so I don't see that proposal in my packet that I was given as a hard copy by Pam, but is that something
It's-
we're ready to actually discuss tonight, or should we hold off?
It's in the online packet.
It is? Okay, well,
Yeah.
well,
And
let's
it's
go
been
ahead.
in, I think it's been in previous packets as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it might have been that you got an earlier edition.
If there was something new, Angus,
Okay.
even
Nope.
I didn't get that. So Doug, when
Nope.
I asked you last time if I needed to reprint it, you were like, no, I have it.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
remember
that-
saying, okay, that's fine. I could have pulled it
Okay.
out, so I didn't. That's fine. Let's go ahead. So Angus, or Pam, do you want to bring this up, bring up the document and,
Angus, do you want to do it so you have control over it, or would you like me?
No, you can do it. Just the memo.
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
Mm. Share. Okay. Mm. Okay. Can you see it?
yeah, you
Yes,
might
indeed.
make it a little bit larger so we can maybe read it.
Okay. How we
All right.
doing?
Great.
Okay.
So I can just give a brief orientation to this. So the goal is we've heard from different developers. We've heard also from the planning department that It could be useful to allow housing in the PRP, the Professional Research Park zone. So what I then have done over the last few months is kind of met with different developers to talk with them. The housing subcommittee had a number of conversations around different strategies for how we could allow housing in the PRP. There's 3 PRP zones in the town of Amherst. So what you have here is kind of the attempt to create opportunities for mixed use buildings and medium density housing outside of downtown in the PRP. The PRP are these 3 outlying districts that have not seen the kind of development that they were designed to foster to the degree that we were hoping for when they were created in previous decades. So all of these changes are meant to be consistent with different housing priorities and the production plan, as well as the master plan. And if you scroll down to the components, there's basically 3 things that I'm proposing. One is rezoning a few properties that are currently in the office park designation. There is only one part of town that is zoned office park. It's where I think it's the Cooley Dickinson branch is. This was at instigation of the town staff. It would be rezoning those properties to limited business, BL. Those also all are currently in the University Drive overlay. So the changes that I'm suggesting here for PRP don't really apply in the same way there anyway because of the overlay. The office park designation is doing very little for the town otherwise. So then the second proposal is to eliminate the separate office park district with those few properties having been moved to limited business. Then third is the more complicated thing, which is to change PRP to allow all office park uses. There's only a few places really where that means anything. And then to allow townhouses and apartments with no dwelling unit ceiling and mixed use developments in the Professional Research Park district. And so everything else that follows in this memo is outlining the specific changes across the bylaws as a result of those 3 components. And you can find them in the other documents that were attached. It's complicated. It turns out that I was expecting that the bylaws were like one Word document, and town staff helped me understand that each article is a separate Word document. And then there's also the Excel with the use table, which is pretty complicated. So I've tried to outline all of the changes here so that you can then quickly reference where those changes are in the actual bylaw. A bunch of them are just semantic. It's deleting office park verbiage across the bylaws. And then a few of them are the more substantive of allowing specific kinds of uses in the PRP, changing lot coverage maximums and building coverage in the PRP, that kind of a thing. So happy to answer specific questions if anyone has them, but that's kind of the goal here.
Thanks, Angus. Angus, you mentioned that the apartments would have no dwelling unit limit. Why is that? I thought our apartment definition had a limit of 24 units. Is that, and why would this be different?
It would be a way of trying to increase the cap on apartment buildings. We have a bunch of non-conforming apartments that are in excess of that cap. And so this would be trying to give the option of creating larger apartment complexes that would follow those non-conforming units, but be conforming.
I see. Okay.
And these are some of the few areas. There's a bunch of issues in these PRP zones with wetlands. The way I perceive it, and I haven't gone back and done the historical research to see if this was true when they were created, they seem like, to me, kind of leftover lands that the town was trying to do something with. And so they are not ideal building lands. So I don't know what could actually be built here, but they're clearly not good for subdivisions or kinds of, I think concentrated housing seems like it would be one of the only things you could fit on some of these parcels when you're dealing with the wetlands issues that they're going to have. So they look on the map like it's big chunks of land, but as Nate has pointed out in our housing subcommittee meetings, a bunch of them are not developable. So I think it's trying to kind of jump over that, like, you know, smaller density housing and just jump straight to medium density housing.
Okay. All right. So I assume Angus and Jesse and Bruce and maybe Fred, the members of the housing subcommittee, that you all are in support of this. Is that true?
True of me.
What's that?
I'm supportive. I
Okay.
congratulate Angus on a very thorough job. I don't know how he does it with all of the other things he's got in his life at the moment. And I'm pleased that we're picking up it tonight because this has been something that we discussed probably in February, plus or minus. And then Angus has run with this ball, and this is what we see, this elaborate, carefully prepared document. And I'm supportive. And I guess the question would be, is this the format in which we would send this to the council for a referral?
Well,
Or
Bruce,
would we expect to make all of the changes to the bylaw before we actually got their general thought that this is worth pursuing?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that question.
Okay.
Fred, actually Walker, and then Jesse, and then Fred.
I do have some thoughts and questions that we can go to me after you've heard from the other board members. I also did map them out just so we could see the wetland issues and kind of like the feasibility of some of the development on these properties, if anyone's interested in seeing the maps.
Okay, well, let's come back to that. And so Jesse, and then Fred, and then we'll come back to Walker's.
Thanks. Excuse me. Definitely supportive. Bruce took a lot of the words out of my mouth. I'm also yes, I think it's a fantastic, thorough job. We've been talking about it for a long time. Thumbs up.
Okay.
Curious to see
Good.
how this proceeds as well.
All right, and then Fred?
Yeah, I am also fully supportive of this approach.
Okay, thank you all. So Walker, yeah, why don't you bring up your graphics? And Pam, I guess you'll need to stop sharing.
You should be able to just grab it from me, Walker, as a host.
Okay, well, anyway.
That's okay though. Thanks for telling me.
So I did them each in their own kind of like bubble. This one to the left of the screen is the one that's by Northampton Road into Hadley, where Greenleaves Drive Apartments is. The one area that I thought had significant potential development potential is the one that's on Greenleaves Drive. One of my questions I had is, I don't know, Angus, you said you talked to some developers. Did you reach out directly to the property owners in any of these areas?
Yes, I reached out to a property owner on the PRP off of Old Belchertown Road.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't reached out to other people.
Okay. I know that there have been discussions with the property owner here about rezoning this area because at the moment he really can't do anything with this empty spot. And also this is an example of units that are currently non-conforming because they have 39 units per building instead of 24. So raising the cap on apartment buildings would make sense for this area in particular. I'd like to hear more about a discussion about why you're proposing removing the cap rather than just raising it enough to make the existing buildings conforming. But that might be a discussion for another time. And the one to the right is over by Sunderland Road. There is a pretty significant usable area here in the middle. It's supposed to tell you how many acres and it doesn't, but it's almost 7 acres. I'm not sure if there's access to that spot though. And then there's the solar field down here and a small lot kind of in the middle here. Angus, did you have a comment on that one?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, isn't the southern portion of this PRP zone also where the proposal was to build senior housing?
Possibly. I'm not super familiar with that project.
It was the
I do
proposal
think,
that a group sued over, and the developer pulled out. And part of that lawsuit was saying that they were suggesting building apartments in PRP, which doesn't allow apartments.
okay, yeah, I'd have to do more research on that. I think this southern lot also has some potential. A lot of these are currently single family homes, I believe. And then this one is the one on Belchertown Road. I think it's the only one that actually has office like research or office style development in it. I don't know if that's as a result of the PRP or if that pre-existed it. There's some potential here as well. I believe this might be the property owner you talked to, and I believe this is another property owner who has previously discussed with the town some options for this particular piece of land. So just a caveat, this is obviously GIS information. These wetlands aren't accurate. It also includes buffer zones, which sometimes can be more developable than the actual resource areas. But I did want to just give people a chance to see the districts and see where the resource areas are within here.
This is great. So, you know, so if the board is generally in favor of trying to move this forward, it seems like from the conversation we had with Jeff Baggs, maybe 6 weeks ago, that it would be kind of the next step before actually recommending it to town council would be to informally or formally, I don't know, show this to CRC and see if they would be on board before we actually try to start a time clock with town council. So Walker, are you the liaison to CRC?
I am not, but I'm actually not sure who is, but me and Jeff can discuss who would be best to bring this to them.
Okay.
And I'll send
All
this to everybody. This is my list of things that I had thought of that I'm not sure, since I wasn't part of the original conversation, if these were considered or not. So I'd just be interested in seeing any thoughts on this. And then we will also need to run it by Rob, or should run it by Rob before
Yeah,
you make any recommendations.
right. Okay, Bruce, I see your hand.
I think that we, in the Jeff Bag discussion, I think Rob Morrow was also someone that we thought should prudently look at this, and just to make sure we haven't forgotten anything.
Yeah, so maybe Walker, let's see, you have this document that we're looking at, which I guess has these 2 pages.
I have one page that's a Word document with some questions and thoughts on it, and then I have a separate document that has the maps on it. I mean, I
Okay.
can send both of those to everybody.
Well, I mean, do you want to show us the Word document at the moment?
Is it not showing up? I thought I'd switched over
No,
to.
we're still seeing the
Okay,
plan.
might have to stop and then restart. Okay. Is that
Great. Yes, now we see it.
great? So it's just a few questions. And again, these might already have been discussed. And I put number 4 here, but I do think that this is probably a worthwhile change. It seems like a positive change to me. So I
Okay.
think there's enough potential here.
All right. So I see 3 hands, Jesse, Bruce, and Angus, popped up in that order. I'll leave it to the 3 of you to decide who wants to talk first.
I would defer to Angus because I'm basically interested in whether he would have time to review this list.
Before his child is born.
Indeed.
I mean, Yeah, I can just say jump in with a few thoughts. For number one, I think that's great. I think reaching out to I'm not going to have time to reach out to more owners in the next few weeks, but I think that's useful. Although frankly, I don't for both 1 and 4. Um, I think the way that I view the zoning, the proposed zoning change, and I guess this also goes to 5. Is that it's only opening up options. All the old options for PRP remain. So the people that I've spoken to indicate that professional research park, office park developments are just not going to happen, and especially not in a market like Amherst. So I think it's great to allow all of those uses still, and just to create new opportunities for these lots that have largely gone undeveloped. In
Can I
terms
just
of the
have a,
density, oh,
can I
go
comment
ahead,
on that real
Walker.
quick? I think I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think my thought with number 1 is more like, are people interested in apartments? Are they interested in like what type of use are people really looking to develop so that we can make sure that the zoning changes are going to accommodate that most effectively, and that you're not missing something that someone's going to want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I think also if you're trying to, you know, for instance, Nate talked a lot with us about the potential for different smart overlay districts or for small house overlay districts. I think those are all great. I think those are a lot more work. And so part of what I'm also trying to keep in mind is number 4, that this is, I think, a pretty light lift that would allow some options and push towards higher density housing that would generate a lot more units for people. But other options that might produce, you know, starter homes or that kind of a thing is going to require more work on our part. And this housing subcommittee looked into some different options around starter homes, and it was challenging for us to envision that in a quick and orderly fashion. But I hear you, Walker, and I think you're bringing up good points.
Yeah,
And I'll just
that's a good
also
point as
add,
well.
I was just going to add on the memo itself, on the final page, there is a comment that I left around dimensional regulations, which is basically that we could also increase maximum building or lot coverage percentages. We could increase floors and building heights. So I didn't want to do all of that because I don't know what the planning board would be comfortable with recommending, and to the third point about impacts on housing densities in these areas, they're outlying. So apart from the one on Route 9, they're pretty low slung areas. And so it would be a departure. At the same time, we've departed in other areas as well, and they all have great metro connections through PPTA bus stops. So so these are some of the things that I'm thinking about in response to the things here. And in terms of what's realistic on the maps that Walker showed us, because Nate showed us these maps too. That's tough, but I'd like to see what developers can come up with. Is I think what my response would be, and I don't think it's our job to, determine well that it was zoned PRP to promote development, and so I think our goal should be to try and promote development of other kinds of buildings, even if the office park, research park isn't going to work. So those are just some initial thoughts.
Thank you.
Thanks. Walker, do you want to react to that, or should we go on to the other?
Just to say that I think those are all also good points, and I think that we can keep talking about it, but I think we're on the right track with this.
So Walker, given that Angus is about to become much less available, is this particular proposal something that you would have the time to kind of pick up and maybe try to contact a few of the owners and think about what would be reasonable dimensional parameters to incorporate into the proposal?
To be totally honest, I'm not probably gonna have time in the next couple weeks. I've got a bunch of grant stuff due because of the fiscal year, and also, I don't know how many of you are aware, but our other planner, Jacinta Williams, resigned. So
Oh gosh.
we are down another staff member at the moment.
Okay.
But I would like to keep this going if anybody else was willing to try to do that, or I can come back in a couple weeks and take another look at it.
Okay, so we've got that on the table, and we'll see if anybody wants to pick it up. All right, let's go to Jesse and then Roy.
Thanks. I was gonna ask sort of about next steps, but I'll ignore that for now because you did that, Doug. Um, I guess it's a question about this and other potential things that might come up in the future. On that first point, do we actually have what's the town's responsibility to contact owners when zoning is going to change? Is there any actual requirement? Is it just courtesy that staff has always done? Like, what is their actual requirements for
I think-
communicating these things? Yeah.
I mean, you can answer that if you know, or I can answer it, Doug.
Go ahead, Walker.
I think there's two layers here. One is that out of courtesy, we can reach out to specifically building owners who would potentially be interested in developing or have vacant lots or lots with room to develop, just to have a conversation with them to make sure that we're working with them and see what they want to do. And then in order to pass the zoning, we have to have a public hearing, in which case we are required to send notice to everybody who lives within the impacted district. So everybody will get a public hearing notice.
Got it. Thanks.
All right, Roy. You'll need to unmute.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Yeah, 3 points. This is on the right track, like Walker said, and thank Angus for putting this together. I'd be interested in contacting the owners and need a little help to get started on that. And then my third question or point is, it looked like one of the areas, I was looking real quick, it looked like it's where the dog park was put. Is that true? One of those sites?
Yes, one of the lots down by Belchertown Road is the old landfill. So
And
that's
so
not developable.
okay, so it was one of the sites that it looked like we could look at, but we can't develop the dog park. We just spent a lot of money on that, right?
Yeah, and we can't
Is it-
develop the landfill as housing.
So
Yeah,
Roy,
yeah.
it's within this zone,
Mm,
but it's
okay,
not going to be something that's actually feasible for development.
okay. But I'd be interested in helping, and maybe Walker could get me started on contacting the owners.
Yeah, we can work together on that.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you. I might have to lean on you, Angus, a little bit, so.
All right. Thank you, Roy, for volunteering there. So it sounds like we've got a little more work to do with this. Walker, I think at any point you could talk to Rob Mora, or you could figure out how to kind of get this in front of CRC.
Okay, yeah, I'll work on the next steps.
You know, I mean, this doesn't have a particular deadline, but it is something we've spent some time on, the board supports. So I think you don't need to make it your priority in the next couple of weeks, but you know, if you can keep it kind of in the mix of things that when you have time you can get to, that'd be great.
Okay, sounds good.
And in the meantime, we can figure out how to get Roy going with owners, and you know, I probably have time to think about dimensional regulations if no one else wants to jump in on that. Roy, is your hand still up because you want to say something else?
No, I didn't know I had to lower my hand. I'll lower.
Well, I can lower it for you, but I don't like to do that unless I'm sure you're done.
No, lower my hand.
Okay, and then you can remute yourself. So then we'll go to Bruce, and then after that, Angus.
On the subject of communicating with CRC, I can't help but notice that the chair of the CRC is listening to this conversation.
That's right. I agree.
You want to talk to her?
Well, I mean, happy to have Pam raise her hand if she wants to have a conversation, but it seems like we're not quite ready. You know, we don't really have all of our loose ends tied up, and I think Rob Mora probably would be good to talk to before we start to take time from CRC.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, but I think we've also agreed that we don't need to, or we shouldn't expect to do a definitive job before we then pass it off. I think it's I think what Angus has prepared is exactly the kind of synopsis, more than a synopsis, a conceptual proposal, solid conceptual proposal for a change. And I think it's definitely ready to for other entities such as the CRC and Rob Morrow, but let's put it in the reverse order, to comment. So I'm not sure that what Roy's doing and so forth is something that needs to be done before we move forward with the concept to see whether the adjacent entities are interested. I think now's
Okay.
the time.
All right, that's a reasonable point. All right, Angus.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it'd be good to send the memo to CRC and try to see if, I know they're busy, but to try and have something about it on their agenda just so that we can get a sense of, is this something they're interested in exploring, or is this something that they are completely uninterested in doing? They feel like PRP is working just fine as is, because we should not spend more time on this if they are not interested. And Roy should not be spending his time, Walker should not be spending her precious time on it. And I'll just add for Walker, I met with Ron Laverdiere, who owns the Amherst Office Park, and I think that doctor's office is over on Old Belchertown Road. So he was the property owner that I met with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hey, Jesse.
Thanks. Yeah, just to remind us, at least my memory of the conversation with Jeff Bagg, where he basically told us to slow down, was that we need to have things in better shape before they move forward. And the work Angus has done is, I mean, in my view, farther along than a lot of other things in the past 2 years we've tried to move along. So I don't see why we wouldn't do that for all the reasons you all just stated about not continuing effort if other parties are not interested.
Okay. All right. Walker, would it make sense for us to just put this on the agenda, say, in the middle of August?
I think that seems reasonable, yeah.
Just to get an update from you and maybe from Roy, and just kind of to touch base on where we're at.
Okay.
Jesse.
Pam's got a hand up.
I'm sorry, I see Jesse's hand.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe if it's going to come back in August, could we have Rob look at it by then or get it in front of him? Or maybe he could join that meeting for this purpose?
Yeah, my hope was to get it in front of Rob and work with Roy and take another look at it before that meeting.
Good.
Great. All right. All right, the time is 9:01. We'll move on to old business. Do we have any topics not anticipated? Pam or Walker?
I do not.
Not from me.
All right, none. And then any for new business? Angus.
Yeah, the comment that I made earlier about the development over on off of Sunderland Road. Can anyone speak to so my understanding is a lawsuit was filed against the company who had developed a bunch of the previously developed a bunch of the housing in the Mill District, and the plan was for this developer, Beacon Hill, maybe to develop housing, partially in the PRP, but this lawsuit led them to pull out. I don't know if anyone else has any comments about that, but I just wanted to spend a moment talking about it. I think Jera might have spoken about the project at another board meeting as well. I know he's not here tonight, but it seems like an unfortunate loss of a lot of senior housing, which is a shame. So I feel like it's something maybe we should talk about.
Bruce.
This project is up. The project in question is up in my end of town, and I think I attended one of the public meetings associated with this, and there was a strong opposition to it. I don't know whether there was an actual lawsuit or the threat of a lawsuit. And I think that, and this was a 40B, or would have been a 40B, so it would have been outside of our zoning. And the question in the meeting, and I guess to the town, was whether this was going to be a friendly 40B or not. And I think the general consensus was it wasn't going to be friendly enough. And I think Beacon, who've got opportunities all over the state, probably took the temperature of the waters and decided that there would be better fish to fry in other places. That's my understanding. It's not terribly authoritative, but I think it's more or less correct.
I did find an article about it just now. It was going to be affordable housing. It was going to be a 40B. Beacon chose to withdraw because of the amount of local opposition from people, but they could have done it through the zoning because it was going to be a 40B. Potentially.
Jesse.
Yeah, just to add, I mean, I learned about it through watching meetings and reading also the articles. My main concern, honestly, was the effect it's going to have on any future possibilities like this too. If that's what developers are seeing happening here, I think that's not great.
The other issue that it mentions is that there's no sewer to that location yet, which does limit development. I know the town has talked about putting a grant in to get sewer down to that part of town, which would, I think, encourage developers.
Bruce?
I guess it should be said that although I was at that meeting and I was almost the lone supporter of in concept or in principle of this, and I questioned I don't know, the good sense of everybody in the room, and a number of people responded that it wasn't that the neighborhood was anti-development and so forth, and they brought the Ball Lane project across the road from this as an example of a project that was universally supported by the neighborhood, and it was. So it got a little complicated in the sense that the type of housing, the scale of housing was what was at issue. Ball Lane is quite dense, but it's low rise. This one was going to be 4 stories. I think the learning that we could take from this is that 4-story developments on the outer limits of town are likely to be frowned upon. 2-story developments are generally fine, and the jury's out on whether 3 stories. I think it's a matter of design, and I think people saw the designs that Beacon had produced for the North Square, and they're pretty clumsy. And I think they put that all together, and the general sense was not in my backyard.
All right, Bruce. Angus?
I guess the 2 things that I would say in response are just, I think it's a shame, at least from what the news coverage indicated, there was a lawsuit that was filed before any of the documents had been brought forward by the developer, which is clearly meant to freak them out and forestall any of the actual democratic processes that we have in place for trying to consider developments like this. And I think it's great that the developer proactively had a community listening session, but also that's not everyone who would be affected by this. All of the potential people who would live in that kind of a development, who are now going to have nowhere to live, they probably didn't come to that meeting. And having a single meeting that determined things. Anyway, so I think that that's a shame. I think it's also a shame, at least based on again on the Daily Gazette's reporting. It seems like one of the current members of or former members of the ZBA was a party to that lawsuit, which also sends to me a pretty disappointing message around the town's view of these of different kinds of developments, especially around affordable housing. So I hear what you're saying, Bruce, and I appreciate that you were there and that you offered some perspectives, and also that that there is not uniform hostility to affordable housing. But to me, this is part of what's animating my push with PRP. I'd like to create more options that allow for these kinds of things to happen in many different parts of town, including in the area near where I live.
And just to be clear, that meeting was not convened by Beacon or anything. It was a purely local initiative.
Okay. Well, I will say, I remember that the town manager expressed dismay at the way that whole process went too. And I think there were a lot of people who were disappointed that it got short-circuited so quickly. So, we just try to have a positive attitude and keep pushing. All right. I think I asked, oh, Jesse, go ahead.
And I switch topics as long as we're having other business.
Yeah.
In other potentially contentious town news, this question for staff or anyone else in the room who knows. Well, any updates on the ADU size issue?
Walker, we were expecting a ZBA hearing in July. Has that been scheduled?
I'm not sure, now that Jacinta's resigned, she was staffing the ZBA, so we're trying to work on how that's gonna be handled. Pam, I don't know if you know anything more about that project.
I don't know a lot about the project. I do know that there is a public hearing scheduled for July 23rd. It was actually posted today on the town calendar.
Sorry, that's ZBA on July
That is
23rd?
ZBA.
Mhm.
Thank you. And
Mhm.
follow-up question, have there been like dozens of more ADUs put in since then? What's the status on that? Do we know anything about that?
I only see them if they come through the local historic district, which I haven't seen any in that area. I'm not aware of any, if there have been any others anywhere else in town.
Okay, thanks.
Right, Bruce?
I guess this is probably something that you could speak to as well, Doug, but I guess the way to phrase my question or my confusion and so forth would be, am I the only member of this board or any other board that has jurisdiction in these matters or that is confused as to why the word attic in our bylaw is deemed to be habitable or even any possibility of being habitable when it is put in a sentence that starts with crawl spaces, attics, garages, or similar spaces. And I think that's pretty close to a quote. So when you couple attics with crawl spaces and garages, I think it's pretty damn clear, even to a bloody lawyer, that it's not intended to be habitable. So the question is, why are we in this situation? Why is the building commissioner believe that somehow or other an attic is, in this sense of the ADU, habitable? It makes no sense to me at all. It seems to me that the bylaw, the way it's written, should be clear and should be unequivocal. And why isn't it? And what do we need to do to help a clear understanding of how the English languages and sentences and so forth are put together so that we can have some consistency here? I am absolutely perplexed as to why we have a problem with this and why we have these ability. Maybe this will be sorted out in the ZBA meeting. But if not, it should be sorted out pretty soon
we
by
could
some other
certainly
means.
request, recommend another bylaw change to exclude attics from the possible 900 square feet or whatever.
Yeah, I suppose so. We shouldn't need it. It seems to be
Well,
already that way. I just don't understand how it can be deemed habitable. Attic in the sentence in the bylaw is clearly not intended to mean habitable space. I mean, how can that not be clear?
Well, I could use an example from a recent Supreme Court decision that I could also say that what looks like a straightforward sentence doesn't seem to always get interpreted that way, but let's not go there. Bruce, I don't know what to do other than just say we need to see how that ZBA hearing goes.
Okay.
I mean,
Oh, calm down.
short of scheduling a meeting with Rob prior to that, or, you know, proposing a bylaw change. Outside of that, I don't know what else to do.
I mean, of course, the frustration here is we spent almost a year on this thing, and
Yep,
we get
yep.
blindsided by something that's completely outside of the fence.
Yeah, I think it's a building code interpretation. I don't think it's a bylaw issue. All right. I'm going to assume there was no other new business that we needed to add to our agenda. Pam, any Form A and R subdivision applications?
No,
No, we're all caught up on those.
that is correct.
All right. We've talked about one upcoming ZBA hearing. Are there any other ZBA applications coming?
Not that I know of right now.
Okay. And it sounds like that body's agenda may be slowed by the loss of their staff support. Is that right?
Jacinta did resign, although Jeff himself has stepped in to work on ZBA. We have another staff person from the town hall, I think is also going to help support that. I'm helping to support it in some ways. So I honestly don't think things will get really slowed due to staffing.
Okay. Well, that's great news. I'm so glad you guys are redistributing.
We're trying.
Okay. Upcoming SPP, SPR, SUB applications, anything?
No,
All right. Quiet is good. Okay, planning board committee and liaison reports. Bruce, anything from PVPC?
I think we did have a meeting, and then we didn't get to it the last time. So there was a meeting. The structure of these meetings, as I've mentioned, possibly for Roy's benefit mostly now, is that there is a certain amount of business, but there's usually one solid presentation of interest, of general interest to the 30-odd towns in the, and this one had to do with the rail connections and so forth. So I don't think it has a great deal specifically to do with Amherst, but it was speaking about the prospects for the east-west rails and for augmenting Amtrak and various things of that sort. So it'll be at the PVPC side if anyone's interested. That's what was discussed at that last meeting.
All right, thank you. Angus, anything for CPAC?
We had our, what I hope is final meeting of the last year, and approved some additional funding for the Goodwin Memorial Church, which was kind of our last outstanding thing. They needed to kind of overhaul their proposal. But I think town council has approved the different funding that we recommended. Nothing else. We probably at some point need to talk about who would like to serve on the CPA for the coming session. I might be able to, but if someone else wants to take it over, I wouldn't be hostile to that. I know Jero is maybe interested. I don't know, but
yeah, and we'll see what Roy's interested in doing too. I think you shouldn't be quite as optimistic that you'll have time to do it myself, but
agreed.
You know, we should look elsewhere first. And yeah. So okay, so then the next item was the design review board, which I had volunteered to do, but I assume Paul Bockelman is still kind of thinking about that. So, because I haven't heard anything about that moving forward. So I have nothing to say, nothing else to say. So next item on the agenda was the report of chair. The main thing I was going to say is that with this being the first meeting with our new complement of board members, we need to have new election of our officers. So we will need a chair, we will need a vice chair. I think the third position is clerk. So I don't know whether we'll have room on the next meeting agenda to include those activities, but if you are interested in having one of those positions, you should start thinking about that. Everybody but Roy has been, has seen how things have worked in the last year. So Roy, for your benefit, you've seen what I've been doing tonight as the chair. The vice chair generally has no responsibility unless I don't show up. And in that case, they need to kind of step in and moderate the meeting. And then the third position, the clerk, is simply the third person in line if the first two don't show up. The clerk, if we didn't have our excellent staff support, the clerk might be responsible for minutes, but in the way it's been working, the clerk has not been responsible for really anything. So it's all a pretty light lift. I guess that's all I'll say at the moment. But I think we should try to get that into the agenda, Walker and Pam, for sometime in the next few meetings. Bruce.
Well, I didn't put my hand up to campaign for continued service as clerk, although that's. I simply, Doug, wanted to ask you: are you prepared to continue as chair in your final year?
I guess I'm willing to do that. I'd be. It's been several years that I've been chair, and I mean the thrill is gone. Let's say. All the powers that come with being chair. I've gotten so used to that. If that's what the board wants to do, that's fine.
Well, I simply wanted to know.
Yeah, I'm not adamantly saying I'm not going to do it anymore, although I've had, moments where I've been like, I don't really have to do this next year. Okay, so really that's all I had for report of staff. Angus, go ahead.
Sorry, just one quick question. It might be worth seeing if someone I mean this next year's your final year on the board, Doug?
It is. Yeah.
So part of me,
I've got one more year left on my 3-year term, and I'm probably not gonna renew after that.
So part of me wonders if it would be wise to see if someone else would be willing to step up so that you'd still be on the board to kind of help them through things, but it's not going to be me.
Okay. Well, that's a good thought. All right. Walker, report of staff.
The only thing I wanted to mention was the RFP for the East Amherst zoning study. It is out. The bid opening will be on July 7th, and I'm going to try to get the information out to the committee, the RFP review committee, the following day. So we've determined 4 members of the review committee, myself, Jeff, Doug, and Rob are going to be the review committee. So on the 8th, I will send out the packet and like all the proposals received and a sort of a chart / checklist of the criteria. And then there will be a meeting of the committee. We're thinking July 14th to review everybody's rankings and decide who to award it to. And then we're hoping the award can happen within the next couple weeks. So all of that to say that I think potentially at the July 15th meeting, if there's not too much stuff, I wouldn't mind going over some of the project timeline and expectations with the planning board and how that's going to work. And then we would want to schedule a kickoff meeting with the consultant as soon as the contract was awarded. That's the one I was thinking might be August 5th. We're going to kind of have to wait and see how long the contracting process takes. But as soon as we get the contract, we want to hit the ground running because it's taken a little bit longer than we wanted just to get the RFP out. And they only have till the end of next June to get the project done.
So, Walker, you're saying the selection of the consultant is likely to be on the 14th, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, I'll put that on my calendar.
Yeah, and I will, when I send out the email on the 8th, I'll confirm that date and make sure it works for everybody.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, anything else from staff? Pam, do you have anything?
I do not.
All right. Are folks, you know, is there anything we need to know about folks' vacations this summer? Are there, you know, absences from meetings that you already know that you might be able to tell us about, so that we, you know, if it becomes clear we're not going to have a quorum, we can just not schedule anything, that kind of thing. So if you have any constraints like that, you know, meetings you're not going to be at, if you could send that information to
Me.
Walker and Pam and me, I guess. Angus, we know you're going to disappear. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sort of depends on things. I'll try to let y'all know week of if I can't make it, but I probably won't know until, you know, things are closer. And then it'll just depend on how my wife and I are handling things. But I hope not to miss more than a couple of meetings, but we'll just see.
All right. Well, we wish you and your family the best. All right. Time is 9:25. Does anyone have anything else? All right, then I guess I will say that we are adjourned. We'll see you all June 15th, July 15th.
July.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good
Yeah.
night.